Whoa, I don't remember the last time I woke up this early for anything. Well, anyway, the theme for this month is robots. But I really have a problem with the word robots because the word robot is really esoteric for me. Well, let me try to explain. Just now, the technology kind of screwed up. So back in the 90s, there was this brilliant computer scientist called Danny Hillens, and he basically wrote an amazing article that pointed out that when people talk about technology, they mean to describe something that doesn't really work yet. I mean, like that video over there. So, unfortunately, robots suffer from the same double standards. So, throughout history, for thousands of years, people have been talking about artificial life and magical mechanisms. And it was really in the 20th century that people really brought in robots into science fiction. 2 words, mass production. So there was a Czechoslovakian play where a bunch of mass-produced laborers pretty much take over the world. And that's where the word robot was first described. So over the last 50 years, science fiction has really shaped and nurtured the way we perceive robots, their capabilities. And I grew up watching science fiction movies, Star Wars, Star Trek, to name a few. Read a lot of Isaac Asimov. For me, some of these expectations were there, but then we were in 2015, and we realized that the closest thing to an autonomous robot in our houses is this piece of shit, Roomba. And I'm like, where's Rosie from the Jetsons? What the hell is wrong with the world? What really happened? In science fiction, all these robots are humanoid, they're autonomous, they're self-governing, they do their own thing. Look at R2-D2, it's a cute little robot, goes about doing its own thing. But, it doesn't need instructions. It doesn't trip over a bunch of wires. So, something really went wrong. So when I personally lose hope in technology, I turn to nature. So, the weaver ant is personally my favorite creature in the whole wide world. There's a reason behind that. So weaver ants live in these nation-like domain states in trees, just like we live in countries and cities. The cool thing is, right outside these nests are these barracks that are garrisoned by these fighter ants. And as soon as there's some predator that shows up, even if it's 1,000 times the size of a single ant, they have this collective network brain that basically triggers all the ants in the nest to come and find this predator. And they circle the thing, they break it apart, they digest it, ingest it, and basically massive destruction. But what's more intriguing is that these ants are known to attack members of their own species. I'm not kidding. They can wage preemptive wars of extermination against their own species. Nobody else is known to do that except for us, human beings. We've been killing each other, blowing up each other since time eternal. So how did a bunch of ants, tiny creatures, reach the kind of complexity that human beings have? That's a very interesting question. So let's do the math. Ants have 250,000 neurons in their body. We have 100 billion. So if you divide 100 billion by 250,000, you get 400 million, which is around 500 million. So you can say that if you had 500 million ants, you would have the computational power of one human being. So can we say that 500 million ants or 500 million robots collectively working together in network brains is a primordial manifestation of singularity? Anybody knows what singularity is? Singularity is this point where machine intelligence surpasses human intelligence. And I really look forward to that day. But let's snap back to reality. So right now, the big brother is Google. And Google, what it does is it pretty much downloads the world's data on the internet, and it indexes it so that you can go ahead and do your Google search. But last year, there was this Malaysian Airlines plane that just got dumped into the Indian Ocean. Nobody knows where the hell it was. And it took almost a month for them to even narrow down possible places. So this was a plot released by the government where they were really trying to show where it could have possibly crashed. It's just really surprising. We're in 2015. We're trying to be a spacefaring civilization, but we don't even have our own physical maps indexed properly. It's really insane, mind-blowing. So I kind of wanted to change that. So about 2 years ago, I was on this vision quest in the middle of a desert in Nevada. And I decided to build a drone company. Why? Because I really believe that drones are an instrument to index the world. So after my vision quest, I went back to Silicon Valley, did some research, found out that this is the state of the drone industry. Bunch of guys in suits working on these joysticks. You have like a video wall, like a big ass screens, and then they're trying to precisely land the drone onto the runway. I mean, that's all fine, but look at that thing. They're running Windows XP. It's really insane. And this is the state of the industry. I mean, I always believe that great technology trickles down from the quasi-military level, goes to businesses, and then finally to the consumers. And consumer drones were basically just toys. There was no middle layer. No business really wanted to use drones. So when I tried to go in and talk to VCs, nobody wanted to fund this. Nobody gave a shit about drones back then. And this is what drones were perceived in the industry, you know? Black and white pixelated images, crosshairs, bunch of terrorists blowing up in Afghanistan. I mean, drone porn, right? You can go look it up on YouTube. There's a lot of drone porn out there. So around the same time, Iron Man 2 was around the corner, and I went to watch it. And there was this amazing segment where there are a bunch of these Iron Man drones, and they're trying to attack Tony Stark. And the cool thing is, okay, I'm being a bit sadistic here, but the cool thing is there's this huge screen in which, and there's a guy, he's sitting in an air-conditioned office, and he's just clicking around on the map, controlling a swarm of these robots. They're like moving around on the map. On the left side, you can see statistics, right? And that just blew my mind. I'm like, why does this thing not exist yet? Like, I've been playing strategy games all my life. How about I build a strategy game that makes use of drones, but instead you're controlling fleets of drones at the same time? So I built that out. I mean, I know it doesn't look exactly that cool, but that was the product, that was the prototype. And we took that, we went to a startup conference, and we actually had a fleet of drones delivering a cup of coffee to me on the stage. And yeah, that pretty much did it. People had never even thought about drone delivery back then. And trust me, this happened a week before Jeff Bezos went on 60 Minutes and he talked about the Amazon drone delivery service. So it's pretty cool. We felt that we called it. And people thought we were crazy back then, but after Amazon's drone delivery announcement, people didn't think we were crazy anymore. So VC started coming back to us, and I thought, whoa, I'm going to build a legit company now. So that was Garuda Robotics, and we built this piece of software that allowed you to control fleets of drones from anywhere in the world on the internet. So connecting drones to the internet, that was kind of our pitch. And I knew this kind of got really crazy when Google saw the coffee delivery thing going on, and they wanted to kind of hire me to do this as a part of Google, so that, I mean, first of all, I've never really worked for anybody, so I was a bit scared to even talk to them. But secondly, I knew that if they really care about it, then it's something definitely worth doing on my own. So I decided to build it. But then a few months into Silicon Valley, the FAA started messing around with us, the Federal Aviation Agency. The US regulations right now state that you got to fly drones in line of sight. What that means is, if you're flying a drone, you got to look at it at all times. You can't have it like be somewhere in the middle of nowhere while you're sitting at home. So I was like, damn, I can't really live with this rule. So I moved to Singapore. And Singapore turned out to be the perfect place, because all the blue-collar labor here is done by foreign laborers, and there's always like a shortage. So we're like, what if we could start complementing this blue-collar labor by having drones do a lot of these inspection jobs. And that was our market. So our first few customers were actually owners of rooftop solar panels in Singapore, as well as solar farms around the region. So we would plot out the mission for the drone, and it would carry like a thermal camera on it. And this is what you would get. You get a infrared map of the solar panels. So the red spots are heated up, so they got to go fix them. So what used to take a week and cost $100,000 was now costing $5,000 and could be done in less than 5 minutes. And this was real disruption. People had never seen anything like this. And word of mouth, the news traveled. Soon, a lot of people started using our service. Same way we worked with a lot of agriculturists in Indonesia. We were actually creating chlorophyll maps of their crops, so they could run an audit trail, kind of see, how their crops are performing. So the red areas are really messed up, so they need to go and add some fertilizers and pesticides. So that's what we did, and it was really cool. We got a lot of media attention. We were on Forbes, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Reuters. Everybody was talking about us. But personally for me, I realized I'm not really changing anything. I'm still building the Roomba. I'm not really questioning the way robots fundamentally work, which is still that they require humans at every step. Like, this robot is really stupid, but it does awesome things. It has a camera, it has a battery pack, it has a few rotors, lets it fly around. But you need people to change the batteries. You need people to transfer the data. You need people at every step. It's not autonomous in the truest sense. It's not R2-D2 level yet. How can we make it R2-D2 level? So a couple of months ago, I quit Garuda, and I decided to build a product company. So I went on another vision quest, and I really thought about it. What the industry is doing right now is like saying a bunch of guys in suit and tie go out and run these big-ass mainframe computers back in the 70s. IBM, right? They were the big brother back then. And this thing, the Macintosh, really changed the way we looked at computers because it solved every single problem that mainframe computers had. It was a thing you could just plug it into the wall, it lights up and it works. What would be the Macintosh equivalent of the drone industry? That was the question I really tried to answer. So I went back to the drawing board and I realized there aren't any off-the-shelf answers, right? So I turned to nature. So I really thought about it. Drones, the word drone actually comes from drone bees, right? And bees live in these hexagonal cells, the honeycomb, the hive. And the hive is like this self-sustaining biosphere for these bees. And they do their thing in the hives, and then they go out, they gather pollen. In the drone world, that pollen would be data, and they come back and they deposit it right into the hives. So it became pretty clear to me that I needed to build a hive that sustains drones in the air. And I looked for answers, and there's this one dude here who has already solved the problem. Tesla. Tesla has charging stations, and at the end of the day, drones are pretty much electric vehicles, right? It's just that they're in the air. If we could build a charging station, a docking station that doubles up as a data transfer port, you're talking about completely removing people from the equation. And that's led to, then I decided to start a new company. So we had this funnel-like structure in the middle of a box. The drone takes off, comes back, lands right in, done, charging. But I wanted to shape it in a way that it resembles a hive. So we built these pods. But you know what's cooler than just having one hexagonal cell? Have many around it. So the cool thing about a hexagon is that you can adjoin them and you can create a mesh-like structure. So you have a hive cluster. Now remember what I told you about the weaver ants, how collectively they are more intelligent than humans? Build a swarm of robots who are collectively more intelligent than humans, and you will reach maximum efficiency levels. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my new project, working on Swarm. Trying to build swarms of robots that can pretty much sustain themselves in the air. But I realized that if I'm building something new, I want to fundamentally change the way we look at the world as well, look at the way robots perceive the world. So right now, drones are pretty much, they rely on human input, right? Like you need to specify on a map that I want to go to this, and this waypoint. How about instead of having a waypoint-based guidance, you use vision to decide what to do next? I mean, that's what we do, right? Like you're walking out of this glass hall, you're going to see this door, so you're going to try to open the door and decide what to do next. Imagine if robots could perceive the world in that way as well. They decide what to do next. So we're working on some pretty amazing and complex computer vision problems. We're trying to determine the way the world interacts and use that to decide the drone's next move. So coming back to the Malaysian Airlines problem, right? You're trying to search a plane in the middle of the ocean. You're going to use, I mean, traditionally you were going to use some waypoints to decide where the ocean ends, where are the possible areas that, you know, the debris could be. But imagine a drone that just goes around doing its thing, and as soon as it comes across something that barely resembles a debris, it decides what to do next. It goes down, it takes high resolution pictures, it mirrors them back, and decides what to do next, look around in a specific radius. So we're trying to fundamentally change the way robots interact in the present world. How many of you have seen this Tom Cruise movie, Oblivion? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I hate Tom Cruise as well, but the movie was really cool. This girl here, she's trying to use this Surface tablet kind of a thing and trying to control the movement of swarms of drones around. I'm sorry, I'm trying to show you sci-fi stuff because I can't really exactly show you what we're working on. My team would kill me, but this is the most I can show. So we're trying to imagine being able to control clusters of hives around the world with just one interface. That's the hive mind. And all the data would collectively pour in, see all your analytics. It's going to be pretty cool. So a lot of people ask me, why am I trying to do what I'm trying to do right now? I mean, it's pretty ambitious. I'll probably fail doing it, still get a lot of people excited. The truth is, growing up watching a lot of science fiction movies, I always looked at us as a spacefaring civilization, and I know that we're not quite there yet. And I came across this Quora post a while back about how many countries actually have the capacity to go to the moon right now, do a lunar landing, and the answer is 0. The answer is right in the red rectangle over there. And it just makes me really angry. I feel betrayed being a part of this civilization. Why? Because, I mean, back in the 60s, you had stuff like Space Odyssey coming out, and if you asked somebody back then where we were going to be 50 years from now, they would all say we'd at least hit Mars, we'll have a greenhouse colony over there. We're not even close to that. So I think robots are the answer to this problem. Robots can really, they're not a replacement for human beings, they're an extension. Robots really help optimize things. And if we can distract humans from these menial, dull jobs and let them do something that's more productive, we will advance. So let robots do all the dirty work. That's my thing. So where this is going, we're not just going to build aerial drones, we're going to build water drones, we're going to build land drones, everything that feeds into just one single hive. We're also going to do space drones at some point in time. Why not? So to end my talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about this dude right here. So Isaac Asimov is my favorite science fiction author of all time. And there's a reason behind that. This guy wrote about robots when there were no electronic computers. So he really peeked into the future before anybody else. And that's really awesome. But all his robotic stories, like he wrote iRobot, he wrote Robotic Vision, few other books, all his stories were reflections of his own personal life in a lot of ways. I mean, he was born to Russian immigrant parents, moved to Brooklyn, New York, 1930s. Both his parents were hard-pressed, hard-working folks. And in his stories, the robots are made to do these dull, dirty, boring, menial tasks, right? But at the same time, these robots are uneasily aware that they're kind of superior to their masters. And in a lot of ways, Isaac's life was like that too. And The Economist wrote this amazing piece last year on him. And they basically said that these robot stories were actually immigrant stories, except for the fact that these robots are not immigrants from abroad, they're immigrants from the future. And I personally look forward to welcoming these immigrants. Thank you. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So there's just going to be Q&A. So thanks, Pulkit. That was super interesting. We're going to do probably about 5-10 minutes of Q&A. So does anyone have any questions? And Ren will come around with the microphone.
Hi, thank you for that amazing talk. It was great, very inspiring. But I was wondering what scares you most about robots or technology of the future or AI, autonomy, things like that. What scares you?
Well, I think robots should be fully autonomous, and that's actually one of the biggest concerns that most people have, that these things will have a mind of their own, which is fine. But they need to be programmatically constrained to do only certain things. Because if you give them a free leash, they're actually going to go out, do whatever they need to. And I think we're slowly approaching this point where robots can actually think for themselves, have actual emotions. So you want to constrain them, and I believe that some people are going to abuse that. And there should be an ethic code that's out there that, helps people make the good kind of robots. So that's about it. I also feel that regulation is really falling behind. I mean, moved from Silicon Valley to Singapore, but I still feel that even though Singapore is one of the most pragmatic, when it comes to new technology, their regulations are really pragmatic. But imagine a situation where somebody builds a peeping Tom drone, right? Goes and looks at your girlfriend's bedroom or something. It should not be the act of flying the drone that should be punished, but the act of peeping that should be punished. So these are two separate things. And I hope regulation understands that, and they will follow properly. Yeah.
Some proponents of the guaranteed income movements are saying that in 20 years, 25 years, we'll have pretty much automated driving, automated flying, things like that. Do you think in that time, drone technology will kind of seed into that, or do you still consider those drones at that point? Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I love all kinds of robots. I love underwater robots especially because I think oceans are definitely not explored and they should be explored. And even a self-driving car, by definition, is a drone. It controls itself. It's autonomous. There's nobody manning it. There's somebody sitting inside it, but there's nobody really manning it. The reason why I'm going with aerial drones right now is mostly because that's where most of the money is, because flying things do things faster than things on the ground or things in water. I think eventually the distinction between drones and self-driving cars, for example, will completely diminish. They're going to be treated as one single entity. And yeah, I think what's being used to control fleets of autonomous aerial drones right now will eventually be used to control self-driving cars as well. So I see that distinction slowly disappearing. And yeah, does that answer your question, or is there anything else? Okay.
Hi, Pulkit. I have a question about your last sentence where you said that robots are unused in the future and you look forward to welcoming that. I agree, but then my follow-up question to that is, you say we must control their thoughts, and I think that runs into ethical problems. Because while I agree that our ethics is now very anthropocentric and we define it based on, okay, this is an individual and the individual has rights, whereas you can't apply that to a swarm of robots, I think we might run into problems where you say that, oh, we are creating something that's a thinking entity, regardless of whether it's one being or a swarm of beings, and then you have to limit it. I guess my first question to that is, what would the implications of that be? And my second question is what you said, how technology is military first, and then businesses, and then consumers. If you're doing it a swarm of robots, it's going to be military first.
Okay. So I'll answer your second question first, right? Because the first question is actually a pretty simple answer. So second question is the trickling down thing, right? Like military, business, and so I'll be honest with you. Swarm is almost quasi-military at this point in time, and we're going to continue doing that. The reason is, I mean, it's a business. You need to create value. You need to create money for your shareholders, and that's where the most amount of money is at this point in time. I mean, sorry, you want to say something? Okay, cool. Yeah. And then eventually I see this trickling down into business and consumers as well. Also, I believe that when you work at the military level or the quasi-military level, you achieve this kind of sophistication that makes your product easier to be adapted by pretty much everybody because you have the validation. So you can go ahead and sell to other guys. So answer your first question, have you seen this movie Ex Machina? Like came out in the theaters a few months ago. So it pretty much describes exactly the same problem, right? Eve, I think the name of the robot was Eve. So Eve has the same problem. She wants to get away, but at the end of the day, she betrays the protagonist by basically locking him in a room and just escaping, right? Well, I don't believe in having emotions towards robots because at the end of the day, Roomba, you could feel bad for Roomba, like it's stuck in a bunch of fires, like aw. It's so sad, you know. Let me pick it up and put it somewhere else. I don't feel bad for robots because they were created for precisely this purpose. They were created for doing these dull, boring, and menial jobs. And right now, that is what we will try to do, and that is where the market is at this point in time. So you're talking about these ethical, notions. I don't think I support that. I'm just fine with the way things are at this point in time when it comes to that. Yeah. But your friend had something to say. Feel free to.
Just want to make a note that perhaps we are running short on time. There's 2 more questions.
It's fine.
You sure? Yeah, that's why I said that. I feel like this is a big philosophical issue. So
Come find me later.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. I would like to go back to the question of what scares you about technology in the hands of consumers, and go back to the point about the fact that about 50 billion smart devices will be on the internet by 2020. I saw a statistic like that, and the Internet of Things. And looking back to the sentence where you said you go down to putting it in the control of users with light regulation, which is a very good thing. But here we can't even control hackers. And it's not in the hands only of spy agencies, it's in the hands of individuals. And what would you say to that, basically? It scares me because I saw a news clip about an article where your phone can take pictures of what you are seeing in real time without your knowing because of satellite technology, and there are apps on the web right now that you can download to do that.
Wow, long live the NSA, right? Well, I don't know if you know about this. Few years back, I think a bunch of guys in Iran or something, they shook the Reaper drone, the big drone that actually blows up people in the Middle East, and they skyjacked it. Skyjack is now actually a term. You can hijack a drone in the air, skyjack. And how they did that was they spoofed the GPS. So all drones fly based on GPS, right? So if you make a drone believe that the GPS input is coming from somewhere else, whereas the source is all the way in America. You can actually fool it. So they actually made the drone land safely on the Iranian turf. So skyjacking is a huge problem, and I think it will really affect drones as well. So I can tell you about what I'm personally doing to get around this problem. I think a lot of people in this industry, especially in Singapore, we are pushing for having a drone bandwidth in the spectrum itself. So you just use the drone spectrum to do all the communications, and it's properly encrypted, everything. I mean, I wouldn't say nothing is hackable, because at the end of the day, everything is hackable. That's why there's hacking in the first place. But we're going to try to make it as difficult as possible. And I think having our own special spectrum to do the communications would really, really be a game changer. I think most countries are kind of getting there, because no one really wants to miss out on the drone revolution. It's going to create a lot of money in the economy. So I think that is one answer. But yeah, I guess it's a bit of a problem. That's why I don't believe that our technology should be in the hands of consumers at this point in time, because it needs to be heavily regulated. Like really, it's like 10 years from now, we're going to be living in Minority Report kind of era. Have you seen Minority Report? Okay. Another Tom Cruise movie, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's a nice movie though. But yeah, you're going to be living in this era where there's going to be heavy surveillance going on, because the flood of all this flood of visual imagery that needs to be processed. It needs to be manipulated and put into like an analytics dashboard kind of a thing, so that the cops can kind of track crimes even before they're happening. So we're slowly getting there, and I do believe that it should be kept out of the hands of consumers. So if we can just make that pretty clear from day one, you're not going to have that problem. So that's my opinion.
Yes. So I have a question here.
Oh. Sorry.
So I have a question regarding mapping and 3D mapping using drones. And I'm just curious about your experience in this area, and what kind of future potential you see for it.
Yeah, so I've been personally indulging in real-time 3D mapping for quite a long time. So we've been working with a few construction companies around the area, and we're pretty much creating 3D maps of the entire building. And it's like a zoomable Google Earth kind of a map. You can actually go and look at every nook and cranny, which is really cool. And construction companies kind of need that, because they need to track progress, they need to look for structural effects. It's a pretty huge business already. I think what's really going to be interesting about the 3D scene is that, if you use Google Earth, the data quality is really shitty. It's really bad. And I see there are like a lot of voids that can be filled. So you have the satellite data, right? And I think the satellite data can be covered by a layer of drone data. And I think that's going to be really interesting. So you have swarms of robots going out and doing mass 3D mapping, filling in the blank spaces on Google Earth. I think that's going to be pretty cool. It's going to make the world more informative. So yeah.
Back here, sorry. I appreciate that you're trying to grow the business, and I think the military question is a more nuanced one. Working for the military doesn't equate to just being bad, so I understand where you're coming from. But I have a question. My question is really, what are the other industries that you're seriously considering, and where do you think you'll go next? I know, for example, we see that agriculture is one of the hottest industries for drones because the cost is going down. But you still have issues there like operator training, like maintenance. You solve the rechargeability issue. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we've been talking to a lot of palm oil companies around the area, and they're notorious for kind of harming the environment at the same time. But these guys are actually going to be, I think, the biggest users of our hives, I believe. There's just so much palm oil coming out of this region, especially Malaysia. It's insane. And right now, they don't have a proper way to monitor their crops at this point in time. And at the same time, I've been on a few drone deployments in places like Kota Kinabalu, Kalimantan. And I personally realized that I don't want to go there again because there's no point. Like, I want to ship things that just go and settle down there and just do their thing. And that's where the whole hive things comes into the picture. So I think, yeah, palm oil is going to be huge for us. We're already kind of getting there. What kind of data do we want to show to these guys? I mean, there are special requirements for everybody. So one of the biggest requirements is you look at the color of the leaves to predict what stage a tree is in, so whether it's diseased or whether it's not diseased. And you need like low-flying drones for that. So that's where multi-rotor quadcopters are awesome. So yeah, I think palm oil definitely. So below the quasi-military level would be something like civilian defense as well. So search and rescue. Have a bunch of these hives deployed at the borders or near, riverines or water bodies. So as soon as there's some kind of a stimulus about a person who's drowning, the hives automatically deploy these drones, go out, look for people, come back. So yeah, those are the two other industries apart from the military level that we are looking at.
We just have time for one last question. This is the hand that's highest.
Hi, I just want to know, what your thoughts are on the responsibility of innovators towards society. I mean, obviously, congratulations on having this vision and the will to sort of realize that that's amazing, but it's very disruptive. And it's true, law and regulation lags behind the innovations. But are there any efforts among your people in your industry to reach out and sort of liaise with regulators, who don't understand these technologies? Okay, obviously, the entire burden can't be on you, but at the same time, you guys sort of need to be out there, sort of explaining to people the implications of what you're doing. It's quite scary. So, could you just talk about it?
Sure. So actually, Singapore has been really awesome with us. We've been working with the CAS, which is, the regulators, and we've been working with them on this really cool product that is going to be released for the public. It's going to be publicly accessible for free, and it's for anybody who wants to fly drones or even just do hobby stuff, right? Like just fly drones, take a drone selfie, whatever. There are so many no-fly zones in Singapore, and most people are not aware of them. And to be honest, I'm scared of these people, because they will openly flaunt rules, and someday the government is going to come clashing down, and they're going to be like, oh shit, we gotta really close down drones all over in Singapore. They're going to put up these radio jammers that jam the frequency of the drones, and nobody's going to be able to fly them. Well, I definitely don't want to live in that world. So we're working with CAS. We're coming up with a map. So when somebody wants to do any drone-related activity, they plot out their mission waypoints on the thing, and it suggests to them the next steps. Whether this is okay, you go ahead and do whatever you need to, or you apply to CAS for a permission. And it's very easy to get a permit. It's a very transparent process. Takes less than a week. You get going. And yeah, we're trying to do that. Trying to be more informative, because I mean, you can put up cute little posters telling people not to fly drones in specific areas. They're rarely effective. You want a tool that's interactive, that's intuitive. It precisely tells them what is a no-fly zone and what is not. So that's one way we're trying to interact with the public as well. But together with the CAS, yes, we've been having conversations. Like I said, we are trying to come up with the drone spectrum, which is going to be really cool if we get it done. Apart from that, on regulation side, yeah, I believe there's not much conversation that's going on with regards to that. And I think there's definitely more room for that. Yep. Thanks.